Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host today for episode, I don't remember the number, probably 380, 381. I'm about 25, 30 episodes behind. I released episode 350 a couple of days ago. So it's in a 300, 80 something. But anyways, I have another great back-to-back, my new good friend, Stuart Wade from the UK. We had a powerful chat last week about his upbringing and all that. What an incredible story. And today he's back here to tell us about his business, his impact, and all good stuff. So, Stuart, welcome back, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Payman. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure's all mine. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Just not long got done with a workout, so I'm riding that wave of the endorphins at the moment. So all good.
Awesome. So, let's talk about your business, and your impact. Tell us. Before we start about that, tell us, for those that don't know you, who's Stuart as a person, as a man, as a human being? And then we talk about your business later on. But as a person, as a man, as a human being, who's Stuart?
Sure. So I think we touched on this last time, and the first,
in a nutshell, yes,
description that comes to my mind is a martial artist. That's been a massive part of my identity as a person for the majority of my life. And so anytime this kind of question comes up, that's immediately where my mind goes.
Absolutely. We're gonna take it from there. So tell us, what is your business, and what is the impact around you and around the world?
Sure. So my business is helping people to perform better in their sport, in their businesses, in their work, and ultimately in their lives. And I do that through clinical hypnotherapy and other related modalities. And I've been doing it for just over 10 years now, which is pretty crazy to think about. It doesn't seem that long, but
Wow.
yeah, time flies when you're doing something you enjoy, I guess.
So how did you make the switch? I remember in our last conversation, you said that at one time you were really moving up the ranks, representing England in international tournaments at amateur level. You won quite a few titles, not only nationwide, but also European titles and world championship titles. So at what point did you decide that you're not going to pursue to become a professional top martial artist in your craft, but instead you want to go down the route of business? Talk to us about that and how it went about.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the professional martial art side of things, there wasn't all that many options at the time. It was usually you would become a school owner and you would have your own martial arts school and teach students and that kind of thing. And I had been an instructor probably since the age of 14, give or take. And it was my after school job. I would get the bus from school straight to the gym, and I would be teaching in the evenings. And I always enjoyed teaching, but I didn't think of it as my career path. It wasn't how I saw myself serving in the world, let's say. And because I'd always been a martial artist and I'd always been sporty and into fitness and that kind of thing, when I got to university, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I believe I saw on TV something about personal trainers and fitness and that kind of thing. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'm doing a sports science degree. I've always been into fitness. I really want to learn, and that could be my career path. And so pretty much as soon as I graduated from university, I booked onto a personal training qualification. As I say, I saw that as my career path and qualified within a few months. And I set off self-employed from the get-go. And at the time, I was loving it. I was really enjoying it. It was quite an experience. I'd never been self-employed employed in any capacity previously, but I was enjoying the experience and building a client base and that kind of thing. And I'm trying to remember how long it was before my first foray into hypnotherapy. It was probably within a couple of years, in all honesty, of becoming a PT. And it happened on two fronts. I noticed that with some of my clients, let's say they wanted to lose weight, the classic thing that people come to PTs for.
Mm.
And some of them really struggled to maintain their healthy behaviors outside of their sessions with me. So, you know, they would just be at home, raiding the fridge, buying far too much junk food,
Playing video games, watching
yeah,
Netflix.
yeah, being far too sedentary outside of our sessions. And so, as much as the sessions would help, they weren't holding up their end of the deal outside of sessions. And it quickly became apparent to me that this was some kind of psychological or emotional or both block. And there was something going on within them that was stopping them from going all in on this fitness journey. So that was one aspect to it. And then the other aspect to it, which I believe I touched on last time, I went through some confidence issues when I was competing in my fitness, and I sought out the help of a hypnotherapist, and it really shifted my perspective. And so from that moment, those two incidents really piqued my curiosity, and I started looking into the mind a little bit more. And I also retrospectively looked back at my journey through martial arts and competition and my degree, and a third of my degree was sports psychology. And so that gave me an understanding of the mind from a sports psychological framework. But looking back further, I remember the age of 16 or 17 competing internationally at that point, and I picked up a visualization practice from somewhere. I don't remember where, but I started implementing it into my competition routine. So I would do my physical warm up, I'd get my body moving, drill what I needed to drill, and I would go somewhere quiet and I would kneel down or sit down and I would close my eyes and I would just imagine what I wanted to do out there in the tournament. And I always found that it put me in the right headspace to go out and perform to the best of my ability. The results didn't always go my way, but you can't control that. As long as I did the best that I could, that was the main thing. Mm-hmm. And so from such a young age, I developed that practice, and I didn't really pay much attention to it at the time. I was just doing it and feeling good for it. But then when hypnotherapy came into my consciousness, the pieces of the puzzle started to fit together. Like, okay, so I started doing that, then the sports psychology stuff, and then noticing this with the clients, and then my own issues with the confidence, with competing, etc. And that's when I started to get more interested in the mindset world. And that's when I ended up getting introduced to Paul McKenna. That's when we worked together. 2013, that was May, I believe, of 2013. And I said to him on that day when I was with him, I want to study this work. I want to get into this because it's absolutely fascinating. So he referred me to Dr. Richard Bandler, who was his mentor, the co-founder of NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, for those that don't know. And he said I should start with him. Study NLP with Bandler. That's where you should go. So that's what I did. And this was in 2013. I got qualified as an NLP practitioner in that year. And then with the wonders of Google adverts and all the ways that they track you and whatnot, I started seeing adverts for a clinical hypnotherapy qualification that was running in my hometown. And
Mhm.
so they were offering a free taster weekend. Come along for the weekend, see what you think. It's totally free. And then if you want to book onto the qualification, that's your prerogative. And so I went along, having just spent quite a lot of money for me at the time doing the NLP qualification. I went along to this purely out of curiosity and wanting to get more information, but I had very little intention at that point of booking on the full qualification, just purely because of the financials involved. But at that weekend, it just resonated with me. It just really spoke to me, and I was naturally quite good at it as well. I'm quite good at utilizing the tone of my voice for certain effects and things like that naturally. So it very much lent itself to me as a person and my characteristics and the things that I'm aware of. And so push came to shove, and the time came to make a decision on whether to book onto the full qualification to become a clinical hypnotherapist. And so I had to do some bank account searching to try and justify spending this much money again on another qualification so soon after. But I found the money in my own account. I should clarify. I wasn't stealing anyone else's money. And I booked on to the qualification. Fast forward a year or so, and hundreds of practice hours and coursework and ongoing assessments each month from the tutors. I was fully qualified by June 2014, and I started then doing this work outside of my work as a PT.
Wow.
The PT was still the main focus, but I wanted to do the hypnotherapy alongside. And there was oftentimes crossover as well with certain clients that wanted weight loss, for example. We worked on both sides. We did the physical exercise and nutrition, but then we also did the mental stuff over here. And I've been doing it ever since then. And it's in the last couple of years, I suppose, really since 2020, where my focus has fully shifted to the hypnotherapy work. I've always loved it, but it was never my full focus, where now it is. I'm going all in with it, and I absolutely love it. It's such a powerful thing. Our minds are so powerful if we can get them working for us, and that's
Absolutely.
what I help people to do.
Love that. Love that. So when you were competing yourself in
Mhm.
those international tournaments, world championships,
Yeah.
how important was the mindset level for you? And did you have a mindset coach, or were you using hypnotherapy or NLP for yourself when you were competing before before what you're doing now?
So I didn't have a mindset coach or a hypnotherapist or anyone that I was working with. Everything that I was doing, I had picked up from watching YouTube videos or studying some stuff online, reading books, this kind of thing. And I was a bit of a guinea pig for myself with it, just trying things out to
Mhm.
see what worked for me. But it was very important. And I can honestly say that before I started doing that, I didn't have the best mindset with competing. And after learning and implementing this stuff, I went in with a fairly bulletproof mindset. I would go into tournaments, competitions, and even gradings as well to excel up the downgrades in the martial arts. I would go in with not just a belief, but a conviction that I was either going to win or I was going to pass the grading. I'd already passed it. I'd already won in my mind. It was just a case of reality catching up with what I'd already done in here. And more often than not, it played out that way. It worked. And so it was vitally important for me performing to my absolute best. Yeah.
Absolutely, because just like not only in sport but in business, it's all up here.
Mm-hmm.
90% is up here because, again, there's a saying that says the sky is the limit. And then I realized if the sky were the limit, that would be a pretty damn low limit because the sky starts right here where the head ends, And then I realized the actual limit is what's inside the thought, the story you tell yourself, what the words we entertain,
Mhm.
what you entertain, we speak. And when we speak, guess what? We manifest. So once I understood that part of the game myself, the mindset, that's when things change around because all those times consuming course after course after course, spending godless amounts of money on courses, always skipping the part about mindset. I wanted to jump straight into the business side. Listen, mindset at BS. Don't waste my time with that. Get me straight to the good stuff. And then nothing was working
Mm,
because it's all here. There's no magic bullet. But once
mhm.
I understood that, that's when, oh, now cheese actually makes sense. So was there a specific moment for you as well where you realized the tremendous importance of the mindset in sports and also in business? And that when everything, was there a specific moment or was it something progressive for you over the years, over the months or weeks that oh, wow, you realize that this actually is where it all starts?
So I think that from starting doing visualizations and doing bits of research on that, even through that time, the following years, doing my degree at university, I don't think it fully hit home until that day in 2013 when I was in London at Paul McKenna's house. And that was the day when the light bulb switched on, and that was when it really clicked that like this is so important, this is so powerful, and this is why I need to learn all this stuff and fully internalize it for myself, but then to also be able to help other people with it, because I've had experience of it when I didn't fully realize and how well it worked for me. So now that I'm learning and expanding my knowledge, it's going to keep helping me more and more and more in business and my life. And as a consequence, then I can go out into the world and help other people with it from firsthand experience.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
And you now, how are you? Do you specialize in any specific sport when you're working with athletes? Are you working with athletes now or people in general or business people or
Mm-hmm. So
what's your
it's
avatar?
predominantly athletes,
Mm-hmm.
but then the business people and corporate workers seem to be attracted to me as well. And looking at it objectively, they both want the same sort of thing. It's just in a different context.
Yes.
So yeah, the athletes are my people, and that's who I do seek out to work with. But all that being said, if I have the time and someone's not in one of those demographics, but they need help, if I have the time and it's within my remit, I will help them, because you train as a generalist and then you specialize later on, obviously. So yeah, but the athletes are my people.
One thing came to mind when we were talking, and one thing I noticed after being in the industry for 4 years is that people want to work with someone that is relatable, someone that is a specialist in a specific niche. For you, for example, you being a very successful martial artist, and now having studied and mastered NLP and hypnotherapy,
Mm,
it became obvious to me that for you, if you were to focus on becoming the go-to mindset guy for martial artists,
mm,
you would really soar because again, you're one of them. You've been in the shoes, you compete at the highest
mm,
level. And when someone hires a coach, I don't want someone that is a disconnected billionaire. It would be awesome to work with Khabib or
mm,
what's his name, Conor McGregor and all those guys.
mm,
But the normal fighter can't really connect with them. So instead, what
mm.
they want is someone that is 1, 2, 3, or 4 steps ahead of them. So I had
Yep.
this vision as you were speaking that for you, if you were to specialize in becoming the go-to guy for mindset, hypnotherapy, NLP for current martial artists and take them from wherever they are to getting the breakthrough they need to get into the UFC or wherever they want to do, or even if that's for them to become, say, to open their own gym or their own school,
Mm,
whatever it may be.
yep.
That could be an incredible, obvious choice for you. What are your thoughts on that?
Mm. Oh yeah, well that's what I'm working on. So
Oh,
watch this
good.
space.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
What kind of people do you really get the best result for?
Hmm. So it's a good question because
Yeah.
we're all made of the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There are commonalities between people with whatever issue they're experiencing and the things that are holding them back and the things that they want to achieve. But also we can be so different as well. And so it's really fine tuning the approach to the individual. And the main thing that I say to all of my clients and prospective clients is to come in with an open mind. If they're open to the possibility of change, of achieving that thing that they want, of overcoming whatever may be holding them back, as long as they're open to the possibility of it, the results can be fantastic. If they come in with too skeptical a mindset, almost like they're challenging the process,
Mm.
or they have too many expectations of it and put too much pressure on it that this has to work, this is the thing, oftentimes that can be a bit of an obstacle. And so the people that get the best results are the ones that come in open to the process and go with the process, because genuinely the results that they can get are amazing.
Makes sense. Do you have like a pre-vetting system when you're talking to a prospect and to make sure
Mm.
that they're going to be not only coachable, open-minded, but also not a pain in the butt? Because the last thing you want is someone it's going to be a nightmare to work with. Their money is not worth the headache and hassle they're going to create for you. So, what is your
Yes.
process to vet your prospects?
So I do have a process, and initially it is having a chat with them on the phone, just a casual conversation, and that will give me the opportunity to understand what they're going through, but also understand their mindset
Mm,
in it. And if they have a so-called growth mindset to where they are open to change, then that's a key factor for me. If they're talking in positives and they want to change, not necessarily if they want to work with me, but if they're actively on board with the change process from the things that they're saying, that's one of the key factors. If they are moaning about the issue and I can never do this, I can never do that, it's this person's fault I'm like this, it's whatever. If they're blaming other people and they're talking about all the reasons why they can't change, that's a huge red flag. And that's somebody that's not ready for change yet, because their barriers are too high at this moment in time. They can change it.
yeah.
They can get out of that mindset, but they're not quite ready yet at this point. So that's the main red flag that I'm looking for. And I do that just by allowing them to talk, and it gives me the information that I need.
Have you turned down people and what was the reaction? And say, well, I don't need your money. What was the reaction?
So I turn down some people. Honestly, they're few and far between though, because most people, when it comes to hypnosis, it's usually the last resort for
Mm,
people. It's not something that they think of straight away to sort their issue. They've usually tried counseling or CBT or some other kind of talking therapy, and it hasn't worked. So they're kind of at the end of their rope, essentially, and at this point they're desperate for change. And so usually they are on board with it, and they want to go ahead with the process, and as I say, are fully open to it. But sometimes, yeah, if someone's not ready for it, what I was talking about before, I would politely signpost them to somebody else, or give them some advice, but yeah, discuss it with them in a way that I don't think this is the right thing for you at this time. But fortunately, and touch wood, it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I know some people will, when they feel that the person is not a good fit, they call them a crazy fee, like, oh, my fee is only $100,000 per week, just as a soft no, you know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah, I have tried that in the past, and
hey, what if someone says yes?
well, they did at the time, so that yeah, yeah,
Cool.
kind of backfired in that sense, but you
Yeah,
know, it is what it
yeah.
is.
It's a win-win, anyways.
Yeah, yeah.
You mentioned that the people that at that time they were mostly in their last, you know, leg, and they have, doesn't that also create too much stress and expectancy, too much pressure on your shoulders to, hey, I really have to perform for this person because hey, I'm the last hope, so to speak.
Not so much for me.
Mm,
I can see how it could, but my mindset going into it is very much like it has been with competition and the gradings, where right, this person's coming to me, I'm going to do my absolute best for them regardless, and I know that this is this is their last roll of the dice, let's say, but it doesn't change for me. I'm going to give my absolute best for them, and I will do my utmost to help them move forward and change in the best way for them. Yeah.
awesome. What is the structure of your program? Talk to us. Imagine if I were a prospect. Tell me the structure of your program.
Sure, sure. So typically, as I alluded to before, we'll have a little chat on the phone first, just to touch base and give us both a bit of insight into each other and see if there's that rapport there and if we're a good fit, as we touched on there. If we are a good fit, then oftentimes we'll arrange an initial consultation. And excuse me, with that, I send them a questionnaire beforehand, and I'll have them fill in the questionnaire. It's fairly extensive, but oftentimes I usually get one sentence answers, or, you know, most people don't go into too much detail on the questionnaire,
Is
which
that
is
a deal
fine
breaker for
because
you? Is that a deal breaker
no,
for you?
no, not at all, because in the initial consultation, I go through the form anyway,
Ah, okay.
and I get them to elaborate on what they've said. And so that's why I send it to them first, see how they respond to it. I review it before we have the consultation. And then when we have the consultation, then it's the time to dive deep into what they've said and talk more in depth about hypnotherapy and how it works. If they haven't experienced it before and don't necessarily know what to expect other than what they've seen on TV, you know, with somebody swinging a pocket watch or dancing around the stage like Elvis, that kind of thing. That's not what I do. So clarifying those things
Perhaps you should offer it as an option, as an extra VIP upsell, you know?
well, yes, maybe we'll see. That's the VIP package. But yeah, so that's what I'll spend a lot of time doing in that session, and do some suggestibility tests as well, which are not tests which can be passed or failed. They are purely to give me the information that I need for how open to positive suggestion this person is, and I can then tailor my approach to that. If they're very suggestible, it's very easy. I can just be fairly authoritarian with them and just tell them, you're doing this, you're doing that, etc. If there's a bit more what's the word, if they're a little bit more analytical and they're analyzing what I'm saying and there's a bit of resistance there, then I might take a more permissive approach with them, offering them options in hypnosis. You could do this, you could do that, but it's all to get them to where we need them to be. After that consultation session, I'll then go away and I'll plan a bespoke program for them. And my typical program that I do with people is across 8 weeks. I do offer a 6-month one as well for a bit more immersive and ongoing support. And I am tweaking and looking at something else as well at the moment, but that's not finalized yet. So across the 8-week one, for example, I will see them 6 times for a hypnosis session. And in between, I give them little techniques to practice, and I call it homework. It's not really homework, but everybody understands what homework is. So it's, yeah, it's something that they need to practice to build on the work we do in the session, so that then when I see them next week, they've already raised their game and we can extend higher and we can build and build and build. The same way that if you were going through the martial arts, you start at white belt and then you grade after a little while and you get your yellow belt or whatever the belt system is at the time, working your way up to black. It's the same thing. It's a process. And typically by the end of the 8 weeks, they're sorted and they're good to go and on with their lives. Sometimes my clients in the past have wanted to do sessions periodically after that to keep them fully on top of their mindsets. Even though the changes have been made, it's as much for them to have the peace of mind that I'm still there. I'm still doing this. And so that's something that we discuss as and when as well. But that's typically how it works. Yeah.
Beautiful. Love that. So what is the number one quantifiable, measurable end result, the number one benefit that someone would get by enrolling in your program?
So if it's a martial artist or an athlete, they're feeling more confident going into competition and they're getting better results.
And if they're not,
Ideally,
if they're
winning more.
businessman,
If they're a businessman, they are more confident at work, less stressed, less anxiety, and they're performing better in business. And whether that is making more sales or increasing the turnover, being better with their staff, the metrics themselves in terms of the quantifiable things depend on what they want. So it is very individualized in that way. And that's one of my questions on my intake form for the consultation is, how will you know when this is fixed? And then it's whatever their measurement is for that we work towards.
Beautiful. Perfect segue. Share with us an example of the most remarkable transformation you've seen from one of your clients so far.
So the first one that comes to mind was one from a number of years ago, and it wasn't actually to do with performance as such. So this particular client of mine, and I believe if memory serves, this was just after I'd qualified as a hypnotherapist. So it was about 10 years ago, roughly. And this particular client was a regular personal training client of mine. And she'd been training with me for a while. She was training 4 times per week. She was super fit, businesswoman, she got 4 kids. She was a superwoman, essentially. And we were due to train on a Saturday morning. And so I was waiting for her at the gym. And she came in just before our allotted time, and she was limping like she'd been shot. She could barely walk. And so, of course, my first question is, what have you done? And what are you doing here? Because if you can't walk, we're going to struggle to do the exercise that we had planned. But she said to me, I've been awake all night. I've been having shooting pains up and down my legs. I think I've got a trapped nerve in my back, but I want to try an exercise to see if it helps anything. So I was like, well, okay, let's see if we can do anything. And so we set up in the gym, and she managed to get onto a cross trainer or an elliptical trainer, and she couldn't even get it moving with no resistance. She was in so much pain. She could barely move it. So at that point, it was a done deal for me. This isn't going to work. Now, fortunately, the treatment room in the gym was available on that morning, and it was unlocked, which was a bonus because I didn't have a key. And during my hypnotherapy qualification, this particular client had been a what's the word? I was going to say guinea pig, but not technically a guinea pig. She had helped me with my case studies and my practice hours. So I knew that she trusted me. I knew that she would be open to the process and she would be able to go into hypnosis. And so I said to her, well, look, do you want to do some hypnosis for the pain? And my thought process with this was purely, I didn't know at the time if it was going to work, but I just thought if it can just ease her pain and help her be a bit more mobile until she can see a physiotherapist or a specialist, musculoskeletal specialist, then that's a win. And so she agreed, and we went into the treatment room, and I set up, there was a massage bed in there for sports massages, and I set it up on an angle so she wasn't laying flat. And as I've talked about before, I like to talk to my clients first on the phone. I like to do a consultation with them and really dive deep to understand as much as I can what's going on with them. There was none of that this time. It was very much an improvised hypnosis session. And so I went into it and I just improvised a 25-minute hypnosis. That was all it was. And I didn't know if it would work. As I say, I was fresh off my qualification. I'd never dealt with anything like that yet. And the first thing that she did when she was re-alerted was she jumped off the massage bed. She bent down and picked all of her belongings up off the floor. And then she realized that she could move. And she started twisting her body and moving like this. And she said, I can't feel anything.
Wow.
I can't feel anything. This is amazing. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, this really works. And so it blew my mind because I'd never dealt with anything like that before. And that getting that quick and that profound of a result, I hadn't experienced that at that point. So for me, it was incredible. And so I said to her, look, this is great, but go and see the physio, please, to make sure that it's not just that we've stopped the pain signal in your brain and actually there's still a major issue going on with your spine. And she did. She went to see this guy and he gave her a clean bill of health. She was fine.
Wow.
And that was it. And so that's off the top of my head, that's one of the biggest results so quickly as well, from limping and barely being able to walk to being completely pain-free and moving normally in 25 minutes.
That's
It was
miracle.
incredible.
That's the kind of stuff that, wow. Did you happen to record that?
Unfortunately not. No.
Make sure from now on you record any of such, when someone
Yes,
comes for these kind
exactly.
of things. Hey, that's going to be the greatest testimonial for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow, amazing. Awesome. Love that. Let's move forward. There's a saying that says, change your story, change your life. And by story, I mean what we tell ourselves in our head alone. So when you steward at your lowest, darkest moment in your life, how did you change your story internally to change your reality externally?
It's a good question. So for me, initially it was getting educated and doing some research. I do tend to have somewhat more of an analytical mind. I can be a bit more skeptical about things. And so I want evidence that something works. And so I looked into different things that I could do to help me change and feel better. And I had purchased numerous self-help books by different authors, and I'd read through them. And so I was building the data bank of evidence in my mind that this stuff works, and which techniques am I going to try? Which ones seem to have the most effect? And I started with visualizations and affirmations. And those things in practice really helped me to shift the way that I was thinking and feeling at the time. And particularly with the feeling side of things, because our minds think in pictures and movies and feel and hear words and feel feelings, but the feelings are so key, because you can say affirmations and you can do visualizations until you're blue in the face, but if there's no feeling attached to it, it doesn't really have as much of an effect neurologically. The feeling is such an important part of it. And so whatever it is that you're visualizing, or whatever it is that you're saying in an affirmation, and just to caveat that with the affirmation should be stated in the present tense, stating something positive that you want or how you want to be, etc. If your feelings are congruent with the things you're saying, with the visuals that you're imagining, it's going to have such a more potent effect on the brain, particularly with repetition then as well. And I typically recommend to my clients to do it first thing in the morning and last thing at night, as close to as they can, because we're making use then of the natural changes in our brain waves, and we're naturally more suggestible at those times of day. So there's going to be less psychological resistance, less conscious mind interference when we're thinking these things at those times of day. So those are the things that worked for me.
Awesome. Love that. Love that. Let's move forward and start wrapping things up. To finish off, I'd like to ask you a series of rapid fire questions on advices. Ready?
Perfect.
What's the best piece of advice you received so far?
Never settle.
Love that. What's the worst piece of advice you received?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Other than get a job.
Well, yeah. That's. I suppose it's not so much advice per se, but it's having someone in authority imprint their belief system on me. So for example, I think we touched on this in our previous podcast, but growing up, I wanted to be a car designer. That was the thing. And my teacher was a bad graphic design teacher, and she just essentially beat the enthusiasm out of me for it. And so getting that kind of negativity from someone in authority who's supposed to be helping you, yeah, that's a really bad thing. So it's not one piece of advice per se, but just that kind of influence. Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Imagine that you had a time machine and you can go back face to face and sit with your 18-year-old Stuart. What's the number one piece of advice you would give to him, all that you know now?
Practice what you preach and put in the work. That's the thing. I still have moments of procrastination, but back then I did procrastinate quite a bit and put things off. And so, yeah, I could be even further along now if I had heeded that advice at 18.
Absolutely. Do you have your own podcast?
I don't yet. It's something that I'm thinking about. So watch this space.
Good. What's the number one reason you haven't started your podcast yet?
Honestly, it's just not been top of mind for me. I've been doing other things and focusing on social media and doing other bits and bobs. I did play with having a podcast during COVID. You know, one of the, like so many people did, start a podcast, and then it kind of fell out of my habits. But yeah, it's just not been something that's been top of mind for me, but it is definitely on my radar. So watch this space.
Yes, absolutely. We'll talk about it in a moment. So imagine you had your own podcast today and it was very successful. And today you're interviewing the most special person in the world, and that is yourself. What's the first question you want to ask yourself? Don't think too much. First thing that comes to your mind.
Mhm. Where are you going?
What's your answer?
My answer would be to be the best and most highly sought after mindset coach, hypnotherapist, sports performance, or even just high performance specialist in the world.
Love that.
Yeah.
The last question I ask all my guests, and that's my favorite question to ask, and that is, what is the smallest thing you've done? And by small, I don't mean something small. I mean the one thing that has had the greatest, deepest, most profound, positive change in both, positive impact in both your life and business. For me, for example, has been starting my podcast. What about you, Stuart?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I would say following my interests.
Mm,
It's something that I've always done, and it's how I've kind of gone against the grain of just get a job, just go to work 9 to 5 and just pay the bills, that kind of thing. I've always followed the things that I'm interested in because of that deep sense of it speaking to me and it resonating with me, and then expanding that into a career path. Yeah.
awesome. Love that. If someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Sure. So social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I am the Mind Coach UK on Instagram, and Stuart Wade, the Mind Coach on Facebook, and LinkedIn. It's Stuart Wade, clinical hypnotherapist and sports performance specialist.
Awesome. We're going to put all that on the show notes. Listen, Stuart, I salute you. You truly live with a heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world, your presence, your impact, your gifts. Stay safe, stay awesome. We're definitely going to talk more. Have a fantabulous rest of the day, week in front of you, brother. Take care. God bless. Talk to you soon.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Payman. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome. Cheers.